Look how petite you are. Whatever we're on camera like this, I'm just gonna bring an Apple box next time.
I don't know why you have to be like that, man. I'm average height. You're the one who's freakishly tall. You should get height reduction surgery. That would be way easier.
I think it's easier for you to just step on an Apple box, like a professional, like Tom Cruise.
Do you think Tom Cruise stands an Apple box? I bet everybody stoops around him like this. You should just bend your knees more often.
I think Tom Cruise is a professional, and you should try it sometime.
I think I'm taller than Tom Cruise. Welcome back to Preview TV viewers. It's Chris Nichols.
And Jordan Drake.
And we've got a video here. It's a short one for embargo on the Sony a7C, but the camera is still in shipping lockdown. One of the challenges of shipping internationally.
Yeah.
But we have some thoughts that we'd like to talk about, give you guys an idea of who this camera's for, where it's situated, and some good and bad points about it. Let's get started.
So it's been a really long time since we've actually seen a new series in the A7 lineup.
Right.
I mean, the last one was like the A7S like 5 years ago.
Yeah, and the S stands for sexy, we know that.
Or sensitivity, the debate still rages.
Sensitivity makes sense. So then what about the C? What do you think that stands for?
I mean, I was hoping cinema.
No, it doesn't stand for cinema, we know that. Camera, that makes sense. A7
probably
camera.
a little generic.
Whatever.
Compact. Okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, it's bitty.
That does make sense, because really the achievement here is they've taken a full frame sensor and put it into a body which is basically the same size as the a6600.
Yeah.
And has another nice feature that the a6600 also has, a larger grip, which is more comfortable because
they put that big Z battery in there, and they're saying SEPA ratings, this is getting over 700 shots.
Yeah.
Really impressive.
I do, however, prefer having a front dial on the classic A7 bodies and then a rear dial for my thumb, so I can change aperture and shutter speed, for example, at the same time. Unfortunately, here we have the two back dials, so you have to use your thumb for both, and obviously, unless you got a really special thumb, you can't manipulate both at the same time. I do like, however, they added an exposure comp dial. That will be useful for photography. My biggest disappointment, though, when it comes to the interface and the handling is actually the menu. So when the A7S III came out recently, it featured a brand new menu design, which is fantastic, and touchscreen implementation for that menu. And I thought for sure any new modern Sony bodies coming out would have that interface. But unfortunately, the A7C goes right back to the old school interface, meaning it's a little complicated and convoluted. There's no touchscreen interface for the menu, only for when you're doing autofocus. And for a camera which seems to be aimed at people wanting an easier experience or moving from a smartphone, this just doesn't make any sense to me. It is nice to see the a7C, even though being a more compact camera, has some chops when it comes to wildlife, sports, journalistic kind of
I mean,
shit.
it has awesome chops. It's 10 frames per second with autofocus.
Very decent buffer, hundreds of shots before you have to stop. And most importantly, I think, is the real-time tracking autofocus, the eye autofocus, and all the machine learning stuff like the animal detect, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of people forget that is lacking on the A7 III, their most popular full-frame body. So if you really want to get the best of that Sony autofocus we're always talking about, and everyone else is talking about, it's simple, it's intuitive, it works great, then you're going to have to grab the A7C. Now for my video people, you might be thinking, this spec list looks basically the same as the A7 III. It's still all 8-bit. Even if you kick out an HDMI, it goes to 422, but still 8-bit. But there are some real advantages. Let's start with the flippy screen. I love the flippy screens. This does have a fully articulating one, so you can film yourself now. On top of that, this does get the real-time tracking in video, where it's got real-time eye detect, works incredibly well. So if you do need autofocus, this is certainly a better buy than the A7 III. So while we're on the topic of the a7 III, I think that's the camera a lot of people are going to be comparing this to, and it does still have some advantages, and I do think those ergonomics with the front control dial are going to be a little bit more comfortable. As well, it's a lower priced camera now because it's a little bit older.
Yeah, the A7C though gives you real-time tracking autofocus, and the new AF, I just think it's worth the extra cost. I think this is going to be an awesome street camera because of its compact nature, and the A7 III is getting a little bit long in the tooth. It's a tough call.
Yeah, and if you're into video, it's a no-brainer probably. Grab the A7C, you get the fully articulating screen and the better video autofocus.
I can't help but feel like there's a little bit of a trend right now in the industry. I mean, Panasonic came out with their S5, an affordable full-frame camera. The Nikon Z5, same thing. You know, now we've got the Sony a7C. Everything's getting smaller and a little bit more affordable in some cases. What about the Nikon system, the Sony system, where they share the same lens mount? Are we going to see the smaller sensor versions of these lenses and bodies disappear?
You look at something like the price difference between a Z50 Z50 and a Z5 in Nikon. I could really see the manufacturers just saying like, nope, we're going to make small entry-level full frames. We only have to support one lens mount. It might make a lot of sense the way the industry's contracting.
Now, as soon as that Sony a7C arrives, of course, we are going to do our first impressions review of it. We're also going to play with the new kit lens, the 28-60. It's a 4 to 5.6, but no power zoom. It's a manually collapsible, retractable lens.
It's very tiny.
Very
honestly.
tiny, and it's going to be better than the 28-70. That's not hard to say.
We're hoping for sure. So you want to see that. You're definitely going to want to subscribe so you see that full first impressions when it shows up. Don't forget, go to dpreview.com right now. They've got their own sample gallery for it. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Twitter so you know what we're up to. And we will see you all again with that first impressions video very soon.